Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the latest edition of Levelytics on video. I am your host, Jordan, and it's good to be back in the war room with you guys talking crypto markets from a data perspective and also from a price action perspective. I'm not going to waste any of y'all's time because I think people just want to get into it. There's a lot of action in crypto markets. BTC is tapping that 80K level. So I'm going to kick this video off with you guys by starting by showing you some data that's going on under the hood. And this data will be focused on funding rate data because I feel like that's the one thing that I haven't really covered this week. And, when you know how to look at it, funding rate data can be very helpful in terms of helping you get a better understanding of what the risk appetite is in the market. And then after that, we're going to go and look through some charts and all these different trade setups that I'm paying attention to right now in the market. And we'll probably have a specific focus on looking at digital asset treasury trades because, obviously these things, the good ones at least trade higher volatility to the asset that they're actually, to the underlying asset that they're accumulating. So that's the plan for the show today. But otherwise, let's get into it, guys. So this first metric, this orange line here, obviously the top chart, the black line is the BTC USD price, right? And then this bottom line, the orange line, is the BTC USDT funding rate rank versus all other perpetual swap pairs on Bybit. And you guys can see that obviously if it has a ranking closer to 100, that means it has a higher it has a higher funding rate than this percent of other assets, right? So right here you see 88. That means that BTC has a higher funding rate than 88% of other assets on Bybit perpetual swap pairs, right? So the number one thing that I think I've talked about this in other videos, I've talked about this in other articles, is that when this value rips, it's usually a good signal. It means it's a good sign at a bull market. So basically, anytime it goes down, it usually means that there's not a lot of risk appetite and that people don't really care that much about owning BTC, right? So it's not a coincidence, right, that on the past move, right, in going into the presidential election, you got a big rip upwards in the BTC USD funding rate versus other perpetual swap pairs, right? So boom, you got that. Then after that, it cooled off, right? And this whole period, it was cold. And then at the Pico top, once again, not that you got like a huge rally coming off of it, but it usually is a good signal that, things are kind of getting slightly overheated when this happens. But BTC USDT is, ripped in August 2025, which was kind of the end of this rally here before we went into full bear mode for almost an entire year, right? And one thing that we've had, right, looking since May of this year, May 2026, is that BTC USDT funding rate has just been climbing quietly, right? And it's continuing to climb as the price breaks out. So this just lets you know right now at this point in time that BTC USDT is ranked has a higher funding rate than 53% of other perpetual swap pairs on Bybit, right? So it is climbing its way up. You can see the risk appetite just slowly sloshing into the market via the BTC chart, right? So this is something to pay attention to. It's not overheated yet. Keep in mind the previous tops occurred above 80%, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. But, you can also have instances where that's not completely the case, where it was still climbing through January and then it cooled off on the top. This is like March, end of February, March. It cooled off and this was like the end of it. So you want to really just see it climbing, though. That gives you a good idea that people are willing to risk on and that they're doing it via the bellwether asset of the asset class, which is Bitcoin, right? So I just wanted to show you guys that to kick things off. And then let's go into the next metric. I've shown you guys this metric this week. Actually, this is probably, I think, the only funding rate related metric that I've shown you guys. And this just shows you the funding rate for the most expensive perpetual swap pairs to trade on Bybit, right? So I've told you guys before, if you see this line flat, this means there's zero risk appetite in the market, right? Because if the most expensive perpetual swap pairs to trade aren't even expensive to trade, that just tells you that nobody cares to own this asset class, right? Nobody's levering up. There's no urgency in the market, right? So you got it here, November 2024. It started November 11th. Yeah, I mean, it started up here. It was actually a little bit late, but you got it, you got it throughout this move up too, right? So we've had it actually, this one, this little flurry that we've had recently began before this pump even happened, the end of July, like right around here. So there were already signs that there was people looking to risk on. And I think some of this price action was shown with some of these standout assets here and there, these fundamental coins that were ripping pretty hard. So that might have been a sign of what was going on under the hood and that people had kind of probably had their final fix of just the bear market. So that's something that I'm also watching, and it's good to see that this flurry is still going on. Let's move on to the next metric now. Oh, no, that's the Dude Terminal website. Oh, and this is, okay, there's not much more here. Okay, so those are the metrics that I wanted to show you. Oh, no, this is the chart that I wanted to show you guys because this is the one. This chart, right, the orange line shows you the percentage of the past 30 days that the funding rate has been negative for altcoins, right? So it was pretty high and elevating ever since May. This started elevating at the end of May, right? This just shows you that people are getting increasingly more bearish, consistently negative funding for altcoins. And then we got the pop, and you can see starting at the beginning of August, you started to see people risking on more, which also matches up with, it matches up with this, right? This started happening at the end of July too. So this showed you that after the rugging that happened in May, which you can see that there really wasn't much excitement on this pump up here, looking back on it, right? You had a little bit of a flurry May 8th through like the 10th. But then after that, May 17th, things started going the wrong direction, basically. This was when people were like, okay, I'm actually getting excited, right? So end of July, it matches up with this metric where the funding rate started just ticking upwards for altcoins. So that's something to pay attention to, right? And usually the top gets put in, there's no more juice left in the building when you get these really low values where altcoin funding rates are just positive like 100% of the time, right? It happened here. You actually got it here. The reason why you got it here is because a lot of people were super levered up going into the presidential election. That's something I can talk about another time. But you can see the buildup when you get really high values here. It just shows you that altcoin funding rates have been persistently negative for a long period of time. April 2025, boom, like April 2025, right? Right before the BTC price bottomed. And you got it here on the big dump going into Thanksgiving, and the price bottomed out there for a second. It elevated January 15th, right? People levered up a little bit. You saw a little bit of altcoin funding ticking up for a little bit of a period of time, and then the market rugged one more time. And then you had the build up, and then the market levered up once again, May 27, end of May, right? You can see it was ticking down all throughout May. At the top, people were levering up there, and then boom, you get the price drop, and then people go back to getting negative funding on alts, and because people are probably getting short, and then finally people started to wake up and lever up right before the breakout. So this is not a worrying metric for the time being. I still think that there is juice in the tank, and that we could just, the market is not over levered yet, and I don't think there's data in the funding rate data across the entire market that supports that quite yet. So with that in mind, I think that will close up what I wanted to show you guys as it relates to my whatever proprietary metrics that I wanted to show you guys about the market. So now I'm going to show you guys a couple tweets that caught my attention today, and then I'm going to start just looking at price charts and talk about my view on the market, and also what I view as like the logic for some of these positions and why they make sense, and how I'm going about reasoning about them if I'm trying to get them in the portfolio. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm on Will Clemente's Twitter because he had a good tweet today that I liked. He pulled this data from Glassnode and the BTC versus gold 90-day correlation at all-time high. And you can see right here, we've talked about the idea that the debasement trade might be back on, and that gold was like actually looking halfway decent along with Bitcoin. So we can go back to the gold chart really quick. I'm going to show this very briefly. XAU. Oh, this is the 4-hour chart. I gotta move this to the daily. But yeah, this is rallying again, right? It's kind of having a similar type move as Bitcoin, where August has been a good month for gold, right? So this is something to pay attention to, right? So you can just tell that there's a certain mood in the air, and I think tomorrow Warsh is talking doing a speech from Jackson Hole, and people are going to, I know there's a lot of people just walking around on eggshells about it, but I really think that everything moving forward is probably going to just be good news for Bitcoin and crypto at large. I'm just really, really bullish right now, especially while the trend's strong. I'll tame my expectations if price action starts to look really wobbly, or even like some sort of pullback from here, to tell you the truth. Like, I legitimately think that we're just going to keep grinding this thing higher. So until then, I'm just still like very optimistic about the market right now. And then now let's just actually get into what's going on in the market in general. I don't know if you guys saw this news today about Athena, how they basically, all the tokenomics just got cleaned up. A lot of investors that had sold in the past 9 months got their tokens bought back from the Athena team, and they're turning on a fee switch also as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this just kind of hits on this topic. Let's just move over to TradingView to talk about price charts. I think this kind of hammers on this topic and the current setup in crypto right now, where the most successful projects that are generating cash flows are just like fully primed to do extremely well, and that there's just like not much overhang with a lot of these assets, right? Like, Athena just eliminated a bunch of overhang. And for me, that actually got me really bullish. I think normally I would not actually buy this chart, but I actually bought with 5%, as always, with 5% of the book. I bought some Athena today just because, like, oh, this thing is already pumped, but like I'm already bullish the market. And I really think that if this thing is going to do it and run off, it's going to happen soon. It'll like happen like in the next few days. So I'll probably, like, if this thing gets just turned around for a substantial period of time, I'll second guess the purchase and maybe cut it. But I'm kind of at a point in time where I'm starting to think that like these the best DeFi projects that are making the most money are just so well positioned to perform well, right? They have buybacks, a bunch of, they're cash rich. The overhang from investors is just not there. A lot of distribution. You've DATs purchasing them. It's just all the things that you could possibly want from them are going on. Like, everything is firing. And I think there's just going to be a violent repricing. And the reality is, you zoom out, for example, on this chart, like Athena, it's been down only since September 2025. It's been dead. Like, hold on, let me see, you can see the red here. It's been red candles only until the past week. So, even though I'm buying this thing relatively high on a pump, and per usual, I'm probably setting my mental stop loss to 30%, somewhere around here. Like, I think it's just a simple breakdown from this like consolidation going on here, like a daily close just cleanly down here, 30% down. I think I'd probably consider cutting it, because it would invalidate my general thesis, just narrative that I'm telling myself, is that a lot of these high quality assets that are generating cash, that have all the attention, all the support from institutions, are just going to run off, and they're going to get violently repriced. That's exactly what I see going on with Hype and Lit as well, right? They're making a bunch of money. Hold on, wrong watch list. Let's go to Hype. Yeah, I mean, it's just like there's a non-zero chance that these things are just going to start going up only. Like, I don't want to just induce FOMO in people and for people to throw risk management out the window. Like I told you, I got into these different positions at different times, and I only bet 5% at a time with a stop loss. But I mean, it is very clear that there are favorite assets in crypto that just have a lot of people's attention, that are very successful, that I think are just going to go through this period where people are like, oh, we're at the bottom of a bear market, everything's breaking out, all the DATs are buying these things. There's going to be a bunch of reflexivity and upwards potential price action kicking in. Even Solana, right? Ripping, Sol USD ripping, and it's above this resistance level too, right? Like, this was it, and it's gone. It's had multiple days, and this is kind of maybe the emphatic day that closes us above that level, right? So there's just a lot to be excited about here with these assets, and I think it's starting to bleed into the digital asset treasury trade, right? So let's actually talk about a few of these right now, because they definitely have my attention. And since we're on Solana, let's move over to FWDI, which I think is Forward Industries, which is the Kyle Salami DAT, right? I know a lot of people have been dogging him ever since he left Multicoin. I know he's got beef with the team, and obviously he doesn't agree with some of their new investments, such as Hype or Zcash or whatever. And people are like, oh, what a loser, he's not doing so hot. I'm like, dude, Solana's moving pretty hard, and I assume he's got a lot of money on the line with Forward Industries, and it's printing blue candles, and it's looking pretty strong. So this is a good looking chart, and I think this is one that could run pretty hard. This is bullish price action. Look at the hold on one second. Look at the compression here, dude. I mean, this is like tight range of price action for how long? Going all the way back to February 2026. So there's a lot of compression there, and I think this thing could pop like really hard. So like, actually, this is the FWDI chart, right? The main Solana digital asset treasury. Now let's look at the chart versus Solana divided by the SOL price. I mean, lots of compression here too, right? Tons of compression. You're starting to get some blue candles. This thing is starting to do a lot of volume too, right? So I think there is a lot of potential for this thing to rip insanely hard. And I think these things are just going to feed on each other, right? The Solana price is going to rip, and the price of this thing is going to rip, and it's just going to be back and forth. So these are really interesting trades. And I think I told you guys that the Levalytics book, unfortunately, is traded in a place where the type of account that the business has is not allowed to trade equities. But these are trades that I would consider taking in the Levalytics book, and I might take them in my personal book. because some of these are starting to look really, really good. Let's actually go back now to PURR, which is another one that we've discussed on a previous episode. Up 10% today, trying to break through all-time highs, looks strong, very high volume down here. And now let's go look at the PURR price versus hype. It's not quite, it's just waffling in and out of momentum, but like you get up to this level where you're like, oh, it goes, if it has another 10% outperforming day versus hype, I think if you're at the top of this area, I think there's a non-zero chance that this thing floors it. You can kind of just feel the buildup going on under the hood. And I don't know, it just really feels like something violent's about to happen with some of these DATs. And I'm trying to think about any other ones that need to be reviewed. Oh, DFDV is another Solana DAT, actually. Hold on one second. And this one's ripping too. It's up what? I mean, since the beginning of August, it's doubled in price. So, these things are worth paying attention to now. Keep in mind, you have to keep in mind when something's up 100% over a 30-day span, especially when it's an equity, that's something to be nervous about. But I don't know. I really do think that this DAT trade might be back on the table, especially for the ones that survived, that actually got to hold on to their bags, that didn't puke them at the lows, didn't get squeezed in any sort of crazy way. Especially for these strong assets. I mean, Solana, hype, ETH. Speaking of ETH, let's actually go over to the Bitminer chart, BMNR. Where is it? Oh, maybe I didn't add it. Sorry, one second. Bitmine. Yeah, Bitmine's printing blue. So yeah, there's a lot of potential for some of these equities. And I think, hold on a second, let's look at this versus ETH really quick. Yeah, this one's the same thing as Forward Industries. It's just like these things are compressed. At least they're not underperforming. But even I think MSTR, good old Michael Saylor, is actually looking pretty decent today too, up like 11.5%. This thing's waking up. So I think there's just like a lot of potential. And I think the fact that these digital asset treasuries are moving kind of gives you an idea that risk is kind of re-entering the system a little bit, that people are kind of feeling a little bit more optimistic about crypto, and that it's just going to be the place to play for a little while here. And yeah, but I'm trying to think about if there's any other assets that I'm actually really that interested in trading. Oh, yeah. Let's do this really quick. Let's go back to Athena, because I feel like I didn't really fully flesh out my thought on that. Where is it on here? Yeah, let's talk about Athena. Yeah, up 16%. Like I told you guys, I bought this thing when it was up 13 or 14%. I was like kind of late to it. And I actually was considering buying it when it got rejected really quickly on, hold on, what's it, the 1 hour chart, right? There was like this little pop here, right? It initially popped, and then right here, it just went back down. It was only up 6 or 7% on the day. And then it kept going. I was like, okay, forget it. This thing is definitely going to just keep going up. So this is one to pay attention to. And I don't even know. Like I said, I kind of broke my rule on this one. I mean, the fact that this thing could just reverse, right? If it just reverses this daily candle, like I'm already down 15% on the position, right? That's not exactly ideal. But the beauty about that is that the book is only down 0.5% if that happens. And frankly, that's kind of the trade though, is that this won't reverse and that it's just going to run off, and that the general thesis is that people are just trying to violently reprice these things moving forward. And I think that's definitely in play. And then another asset that I was talking to you guys about the other day, I almost pulled the trigger on this today, is AAVE. So let's talk about this for a second, right? It's blue candles here blue candles on the USD chart for AAVE USD. This is what we're looking at here, blue, right? I'm fine with that. It's a little overextended. Whatever for right now. This is AAVE BTC. This is what makes me more interested, right? If I was going to do anything, I'd swap some BTC for AAVE, because it's retesting the top side of this tight range that it traded in for a month or two, right? AAVE BTC. The only other thing I want to take into consideration now, just because I'm starting to kind of run out of wiggle room on assets that I can own, right? Because at some point you don't want to spread yourself way too thin, right? Because I think right now I've got about 50% of the book spread between Solana, ETH, and BTC, right? But if I start just spreading it so thin, it's not even worth owning the majors, right? So I want to make sure I own enough of the majors that it doesn't start to become like nonsensical the way I've actually managed the book, right? You don't want to be spread too thin, basically. So now I want to just add extra parameters to be like, is this thing definitely going to outperform the majors or not, right? And this is AAVE versus ETH. And this thing is still kind of trading in a range here, AAVE versus ETH. And I think if I get a break above, just a move above here, just the local high, right? Hold on one second. I'll draw it for you guys just so you see it. Daily close above this, then I swap some ETH into AAVE. Is something I'd consider. Because also another thing that I'm likewise considering, because Solana had such a monster day and it's showing some strength. Hold on one second. This is Sol versus ETH, the Sol ETH price, right? Blue candle. So part of me is considering actually punting, selling some ETH and buying a little bit more Solana, because my ETH position currently is bigger than my Solana position. And this gives me an idea like, oh, you know what? I want to own the fastest horse. I think this game that I'm trying to play right now is kind of one where I want to own the fastest horse, but I don't want to move around my money too much, if that makes sense, because a lot of these assets are potentially breaking out of consolidation here, and I don't want to be playing musical chairs while that's going on, and I'm just chasing pumps left and right. So, but that's why, like on this first blue candle, my thought process is, okay, well, if I'm going to buy a momentum candle, I would like to buy the first one, right? And this is a break above this level here for Sol ETH, right? It's a cute little breakout. We have 24 minutes left in the day, and that just looks good. So this is something else that I'm considering doing with the ETHs. I'm considering diversifying some of my ETH into Solana and some of it into AAVE. So, and yeah, the problem is like, I don't want to get to a point where my ETH position is only like 5% of the book, because at that point I might as well risk on with it or keep it in cash. I don't really want to be in this middle ground where I'm holding tiny positions in the majors. And that's kind of where I'm at mentally. But yeah, I really do think that like some of these DAT plays, like, assets that have DATs, like such as Solana, Hype, are going to do pretty well. And they look strong. And I think there's just a lot of good catalysts coming out and a lot of good developments going on in the crypto ecosystem. Now that we're down here, the Tau chart looks good. And I've seen a lot of people talking about this recently on Twitter, and I saw Barry Silbert shilling it too. This chart is showing some strength too. This actually looks halfway decent, and it's actually not broken out yet. And this is actually the first blue candle of momentum. So this is something that I would consider toying around with. But honestly, for the time being, I'm probably not going to touch it for the simple reason that, as you guys know, I think the Levelytics book is only, let's open this up really quick. Going into today, the Levelytics book was only 12% cash, and I clipped off 4 to 5% of this into Athena. So basically non-existent cash position. I think the BTC position is like 20 to 25% of the book or something like that. So the BTC position I view as like my bull market cash, right? Where it's like, when I take profits, I'm just going to take it into BTC. And then once BTC starts looking wobbly, then I'll sell everything. So that's kind of the game plan there. But yeah, in terms of real American US government denominated cash, I'm holding very, very little. And, that's kind of like I told you guys, whenever I think the market's breaking out, that's what I do. In May, I did the same thing. And I temporarily made a good chunk of change before giving it all back. And hopefully this time that doesn't happen. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that is on my mind for the time being. But I think that actually might just be it. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. And I appreciate y'all's attention. I hope you guys... Oh, actually, sorry. One more thing. Let's just talk about... sorry. This is one other thing that I want to talk to you guys about. Yeah. I think I've told you guys I added a Fartcoin position, but this thing is just still wobbling around here. I think there's a non-zero chance that this thing really, really goes for it. So that's it. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, appreciate the attention. If you guys have any comments on things that you think I could do better, just let me know. Shoot me a message on Twitter @PermableNino, or leave me a comment in the comment section. Thank you so much. Goodbye.